The vast emptiness of space suddenly filled with light as 12 massive ships appeared from nowhere. Each ship was the size of a small city, their dark metal hulls covered in weapon ports and glowing energy shields. The Imperial fleet of the Zephyrian Empire had arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. His purple skin gleamed under the ship's lights as he studied the readings on his command screens. Through the large windows of the bridge, he could see the small blue planet that hung in the distance like a jewel against the black of space. "This is it?" Vextar asked his second-in-command. "This tiny world is what the Galactic Council warned us about?" Commander Zeklos nodded nervously. "Yes, Admiral. The planet they call Earth. Intelligence reports say the species there has barely learned to travel between stars. They should be easy to conquer." Vextar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. In his 300 years of life, he had led the Imperial fleet to victory on 47 different worlds. Each time, the pattern was the same. His massive ships would arrive, demand surrender, and within days the planet would be under Imperial control. Earth would be no different. The Admiral's ship sensors began picking up signals from around the solar system. Small human vessels moved between the planets like insects. Mining ships worked the asteroid belt, hauling rocks full of metal back toward Earth. Cargo ships carried supplies to the outer colonies. A few patrol boats moved slowly through space, their weapons so small they would barely scratch the paint on an Imperial dreadnought. "Look at them," Vextar said to his crew. "They move like they don't even know we're here. Their ships are pathetic. This will be over before the sun sets on that little blue world." On Earth, alarms were already ringing. Deep underground, in a bunker beneath the Swiss Alps, Admiral Sarah Chen stared at her own screens. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes, but her hands moved quickly across the control panels as reports came in from around the solar system. 12 ships, Admiral," her aide reported. "They're big ones. Each ship is reading about 5 kilometers long. They're holding position at the edge of the system." Chen nodded slowly. "Any communication attempts?" "Not yet, but our long-range sensors are picking up energy signatures that match the warning profiles from the Galactic Council. These are definitely Zephyrian Imperial ships." The Admiral took a deep breath. Earth had been preparing for this day for over 50 years. Ever since humanity had made first contact with the Galactic Council, they had learned about the various empires that swept through space, conquering weaker species. The Zephyrians were one of the worst. They had destroyed dozens of civilizations, turning their worlds into mining colonies and their people into slaves. "Begin evacuation of all civilian areas," Chen ordered. "Move the children and elderly to the deep shelters. Wake up all military personnel and bring our defense fleet to full alert." Across the solar system, human ships began to move. What Admiral Vextar saw as pathetic patrol boats were actually scout ships, reporting back to Earth about every detail of the Imperial fleet. The mining ships and cargo haulers began heading for safe areas behind the larger planets and moons. From hidden bases carved into asteroids, squadrons of fighter ships launched into space. Their engines were quiet and their hulls were dark, making them hard to spot against the background of stars. These fighters spread out across the solar system, taking positions around the Imperial fleet. On Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, massive, defensive platforms began rising from beneath the ice. These platforms had been built in secret over many years, their construction hidden from the scanning sensors of passing alien ships. Each platform mounted weapons and shields that humanity had learned to build from studying the wreckage of other failed invasion fleets. Admiral Vextar watched these movements with amusement. "They're trying to evacuate," he told his crew. "Good. It will save us the trouble of hunting them down later." What he didn't notice were the subtle changes happening all around his fleet. Space seemed empty, but it wasn't. Tiny sensor drones, no bigger than marbles, floated through the area, recording everything about the Imperial ships. These drones sent their data back to Earth, where human computers analyzed every detail of Zephyrian technology. The human ships that Vextar could see were just the obvious ones. Hidden throughout the solar system were dozens more vessels, invisible to Imperial sensors. Some hid behind the larger planets, using their gravity to mask their energy signatures. Others used advanced stealth technology that bent light around, their hulls making them impossible to see. On the moon, the largest of these hidden ships waited in a crater on the far side. The USS Adaptation was humanity's newest and most powerful warship. It looked strange compared to the sleek Imperial vessels. Its hull was covered in mismatched armor plates, each piece taken from a different alien design. Its weapons came from a dozen different species, all improved and modified by human engineers. Captain Rodriguez stood on the Adaptation's bridge, watching the Imperial fleet through his ship's sensors. "They have no idea what they're walking into," he said to his crew, "just like all the others." Behind him, his weapons officer checked her instruments. "All systems ready, Captain. We have target locks on all 12 ships." "Hold fire," Rodriguez ordered. "Admiral Chen wants to give them a chance to leave peacefully first." Back on the Dominion's wrath, Admiral Vextar was growing impatient. "Open a communication channel to the human homeworld," he commanded. "It's time to explain their situation to them." The bridge filled with the electronic sounds of the communication system connecting. Soon, Vextar's voice would boom across Earth's airwaves, demanding immediate surrender. He had given this same speech 47 times before. The words came easily to him. But as he prepared to speak, something nagged at the back of his mind. The Galactic Council had seemed unusually worried when they mentioned Earth. They had warned him that humans were different from other species. They had suggested that perhaps the Empire should avoid this particular star system altogether. Vexatar had dismissed their warnings as weakness. The Galactic Council was made up of peaceful species who preferred trade and diplomacy to conquest. They probably thought every species was dangerous because they were too afraid to fight anyone themselves. Still, there was something odd about this solar system. The human ships moved with purpose, like they knew exactly what they were doing. Their formations were precise, their movements coordinated. Most species panicked when the Imperial fleet arrived, sending desperate messages begging for mercy or trying to negotiate. The humans seemed calm, almost as if they had been expecting this visit. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "I'm receiving a response from the human homeworld." "Put it on screen," Vextar ordered. A woman's face appeared on the main view screen. She wore a simple military uniform with the insignia of Earth's Defense Force. Her gray hair was pulled back neatly, and her eyes were steady as she looked directly at Vextar. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force," she said in a calm voice. "You are not welcome in this star system. I strongly suggest you turn your ships around and leave immediately." Vexatar's eyes widened in surprise. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. Usually, the leaders of conquered worlds begged for mercy or tried to buy time with desperate offers of tribute. This human woman spoke to him as if she were his equal. The Admiral's shock quickly turned to anger. How dare this primitive species treat him with such disrespect? He would show them the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Vextar stared at the human woman on his screen, his purple face darkening with rage. In 3 centuries of conquest, no species had ever spoken to him with such boldness. The audacity of this primitive creature was beyond belief. "You suggest I leave?" Vextar's voice boomed through the communication channel. "Do you have any idea who you are speaking to? I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. I have conquered more worlds than your species has years of civilization." Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. She sat calmly in her command chair, her hands folded in her lap. "I know exactly who you are, Admiral. I've studied your military record quite thoroughly. 47 conquered worlds, including the destruction of the Kellan homeworld and the enslavement of the Trithin colonies." Vextar was surprised that she knew so much about his victories, but he pushed that thought aside. "Then you understand. What will happen to your world if you resist? I offer you one chance to surrender. Submit to Imperial rule, and your people will be allowed to live as workers in our mining operations." "That's very generous," Chen replied, and Vextar thought he heard sarcasm in her voice. "But I'm afraid we'll have to decline your offer. Earth is not for sale, Admiral. Neither are its people." The Imperial Admiral couldn't believe what he was hearing. You refuse? Your entire planet will be reduced to ash. My 12 dreadnoughts carry enough firepower to crack continents. I'm sure. They do, Chen said calmly. That's exactly the kind of excessive force we've come to expect from your empire. But as I said, you're not welcome here. Please leave our star system immediately. Vextar cut the communication with an angry gesture. His bridge crew stood in stunned silence, unsure how to react to such open defiance. Commander Zeklo stepped forward nervously. Admiral, perhaps we should scan their defenses more carefully before we attack. The Galactic Council's warnings. The Galactic Council are cowards. Vextar snapped. They see threats where none exist because they're too weak to fight their own battles. These humans have a few patrol boats and some orbital platforms, nothing more. But even as he spoke, Vexatar's tactical officers were conducting deeper scans of the solar system. What they found confused them. The human ships were old and mismatched, clearly built from salvaged parts. Their weapons appeared to be retrofitted, civilian equipment. Their armor looked like patchwork with different types of metal plates bolted together. Sir, his science officer reported, the human vessels don't match any known design patterns. It's like they built their ships from spare parts taken from dozens of different species. Exactly, Vextar said. They're desperate scavengers picking through the garbage left behind by real civilizations. This just proves how pathetic they are. What Vextar didn't understand was that the mismatched appearance of human ships was intentional. Over the past century, Earth had encountered several alien species who had tried to conquer them. Each time, humanity had studied their attackers' technology, learned from it, and incorporated the best parts into their own designs. The patchwork armor wasn't random salvage. Each plate was carefully chosen and improved upon. The Kralon Empire had developed incredibly strong hull plating before they mysteriously disappeared 50 years ago. The Nexus Confederation had created energy-efficient shield generators before their fleets vanished in this same star system. The human ships looked like junk, but they were actually floating museums of advanced alien technology, all of it reverse-engineered and enhanced by human science. Admiral Vextar decided to demonstrate Imperial power. Target their largest moon, he ordered. The one they call Europa. Fire a warning shot at their mining colony there. Sir, our sensors show significant defensive installations around Europa, his tactical officer warned. I don't care if they have 1,000 defensive platforms, Vexistar growled. One blast from our main cannon will show them the futility of resistance. The Dominion's wrath slowly turned toward Europa, its massive main gun beginning to charge. Energy built up in the weapon's core, creating a deep humming sound that vibrated through the ship's hull. This cannon could punch through a planet's crust, turning mountains into glass and boiling oceans dry. On Europa, human technicians watched their instruments as the Imperial ship prepared to fire. They didn't panic or run for shelter. Instead, they calmly activated defensive systems that had been hidden beneath the moon's icy surface for decades. Energy buildup detected in the Imperial flagship, one technician reported to Admiral Chen. They're targeting our Europa facility. Understood, Chen replied. Activate the Europa defense grid. Let's show them what we learned from the Jan Protectorate. The Jan Protectorate had been a peaceful species with incredibly advanced defensive technology. When the Zephyrian Empire had tried to conquer them 30 years ago, their entire fleet had simply vanished without a trace. The Imperial records listed it as a navigational accident, but Admiral Chen knew better. The Jan had been humanity's first teachers in the art of energy manipulation. Admiral Vextar watched as his main cannon reached full charge. Fire, he commanded. A brilliant red beam of energy lanced across space toward Europa. The beam contained enough power to vaporize a small city, and it moved at nearly the speed of light. There was no way the humans could react in time to stop it. But as the deadly energy approached Europa, something impossible happened. Massive defensive screens suddenly appeared around the moon, shimmering like soap bubbles in the starlight. The crimson beam struck these screens and simply disappeared, absorbed completely without even a flash of light. The bridge of the Dominion's wrath fell silent. Every Zephyrian stared at their instruments in disbelief. Their most powerful weapon had been stopped as easily as a child throwing a rock at a brick wall. Impossible, Vextar whispered. Our main cannon can destroy battle stations. It can crack moons in half. How did they absorb that much energy? Before anyone could answer, Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system again. That was your warning shot, Admiral Vextar. I trust it demonstrated that we take our defensive capabilities seriously. Vextar found his voice again. What kind of technology is that? Those shields are beyond anything in our databases. The Zhan Protectorate developed some very interesting theories about energy manipulation, Chen replied casually. Of course, we've made quite a few improvements to their original designs over the years. The Imperial Admiral felt a cold chill run down his spine. The Zhan Protectorate had been destroyed by the Empire decades ago. How could humans have access to their technology? And more importantly, how had they improved upon it? This is your final warning, Chen continued. Any further aggressive actions will be met with proportional response. I strongly advise you to withdraw from our star system while you still can. Vexitar's mind raced as he tried to understand what was happening. The humans spoke as if they had dealt with Imperial technology before. They seemed to know exactly what his ships were capable of, and somehow they had defensive systems that could stop his most powerful weapons. Admiral, Commander Zeklos whispered urgently. Perhaps we should consider a tactical withdrawal. We could return with reinforcements. Never, Vextar snarled. I will not be humiliated by a species that hasn't even colonized their own solar system properly. They got lucky with their defense screen. Our combined firepower will overwhelm any shield they can generate. But even as he spoke, Vextar's confidence was shaken. For the first time in his long military career, he was facing an enemy that seemed prepared for his arrival. The humans weren't panicking or begging for mercy. They were calm, confident, almost as if they had been expecting him. Around the solar system, human ships continued their mysterious movements. More vessels appeared from behind planets and asteroids, their engines glowing as they took positions around the Imperial fleet. To Vextar's sensors, they still looked like a collection of obsolete patrol boats and converted civilian ships. What he couldn't see were the weapon systems hidden beneath their patched hulls, or the advanced targeting computers that were already calculating firing solutions for every Imperial vessel. The humans had learned from 47 different species, taking the best weapons and defenses from each conquered empire and combining them into something far more powerful than the sum of its parts. Admiral Chen's final transmission echoed through the Imperial flagship. Choose wisely, Admiral. History will remember what happens next. Admiral Vextar paced across the bridge of his flagship, his purple skin darker than usual with worry and anger. The failure of his main cannon to even scratch the human defenses had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. In 300 years of conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. Run a complete tactical scan of their vessels, he ordered his crew. I want to know everything about their technology, weapons, engines, hull composition, everything. His tactical officers bent over their instruments, directing the fleet's most powerful sensors toward the human ships scattered throughout the solar system. What they found made no sense at all. Admiral, his chief science officer reported, these readings can't be right. The human ships are generating energy signatures that are off our scales. What do you mean? Vextar demanded. Sir, that ship hiding behind their moon is putting out more power than our entire fleet combined. And the smaller vessels, the ones that look like converted cargo haulers. Their weapon signatures match designs from the Korthak hegemony. Vextar felt his blood turn cold. The Korthak hegemony had been one of the most feared military powers in the galaxy. Their ships could tear through Imperial armor like paper, and their weapons could destroy planets. But the Korthak had vanished. Mysteriously, over a century ago, their entire civilization simply disappearing without a trace. That's impossible, Vextar said. The Korthak technology was destroyed when their empire fell. No one has seen their weapons for over 100 years. I'm reading multiple Korthak energy signatures, sir, his officer insisted. But they're not exact matches. It's like someone took their designs and improved them. Before Vextar could respond, his communication system activated. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen again, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood several human officers, and the walls of her command center were covered with technical displays. "Admiral Vextar," Chen said calmly, "I think it's time we had an honest conversation. My technical staff has prepared something that might interest you." One of the human officers stepped forward and activated a holographic display. Three-dimensional images appeared in the air, showing detailed blueprints of Zephyrian ships. Every weapon system, every piece of armor, every component was labeled and analyzed. "These are the complete technical specifications for your Dreadnought-class vessels," the officer explained. "We have similar data for all 12 ships in your fleet. We know the exact strength of your shields, the range and power of your weapons, and the location of every weak point in your design." Vexatar stared at the display in shock. The blueprints were perfect, showing details that only the Imperial shipyard should have known. "How did you get that information?" he demanded. "The same way we got this," Chen replied. Another hologram appeared, showing the wreckage of an Imperial fleet. "This is what's left of Admiral Kron's expedition. He brought 15 ships to conquer Earth about 80 years ago. We studied his technology very carefully." The Admiral felt sick. Kron's fleet was listed in Imperial records as lost in a navigation accident near a black hole. The idea that they had actually reached Earth and been destroyed was impossible to accept. "And this," Chen continued as more holograms appeared, "is what remained of Admiral Thek's fleet. 22 ships, lost 50 years ago. Their shield technology was quite impressive, though we've made significant improvements." Vextar recognized the designs. Thek's expedition had also been listed as a navigation loss. But here were human records showing the complete destruction of his fleet, along with detailed analysis of every piece of technology they had carried. "You're lying," Vextar whispered. "Those fleets were destroyed by natural disasters, space hazards, navigation errors." "Were they?" Chen asked. "Or did the Imperial Command decide it was easier to blame cosmic accidents than admit their fleets had been defeated by a species they considered primitive?" More holograms filled the air. Ship after ship, fleet after fleet, all showing the same pattern. Imperial expeditions that had been sent to conquer Earth, only to vanish completely. In the official records, they were all listed as accidents. But here was proof that every single one had reached Earth and been destroyed. 17 different fleets over the past 2 centuries, Chen explained. Each one brought us new technology to study. The Vardek Empire taught us about energy weapons. The Nexus Confederation showed us shield generation. The Korthak hegemony gave us plasma manipulation. Every species that tried to conquer us made us stronger. Vexatar's legs felt weak. He collapsed into his command chair, staring at the evidence of humanity's incredible secret. For 200 years, the most powerful empires in the galaxy had been sending their fleets to Earth only to have them disappear without a trace. And each time the humans had grown more powerful. "You see, Admiral," Chen continued, "humanity has a particular talent that makes us very dangerous to conquer. We don't just fight our enemies. We study them. We learn from them. We take their best ideas and make them better." The holographic display changed, showing human ships under construction. Vextar could see that each vessel was built using technology from dozens of different species. The hulls used Zephyrian armor plating, but improved with materials from the Kellen homeworld. The weapons combined Korthak plasma technology with Nexus energy focusing systems. The shields were based on Jan designs but powered by engines that used principles from a dozen different civilizations. "Every species that has tried to destroy us has only made us more capable of defending ourselves," Chen explained. "Your predecessors brought us the tools we needed to defeat you." Admiral Vexatar found his voice again, though it came out as barely a whisper. "What are you?" "We're teachers, Admiral," Chen replied. "And students. We learn from everyone we meet, even our enemies, especially our enemies. You see, when someone tries to kill you, you pay very close attention to how they do it. And then you figure out how to do it better." The human officer at the technical display activated new images. These showed human scientists and engineers working in vast laboratories taking apart alien technology piece by piece. In one image, Human technicians were carefully studying a Zephyrian shield generator. In another, they were testing an improved version that glowed twice as bright as the original. "We've had over 2 centuries to prepare for your arrival," Chen said. "We know everything about your tactics, your technology, and your weaknesses. We've fought 17 different species, and we've learned something valuable from each one." Vextar looked at the tactical displays on his own bridge. His fleet's sensors were now showing the truth about the human vessels surrounding them. The mismatched hulls weren't signs of desperation. They were proof of incredible technological advancement. Each ship was a floating collection of the galaxy's most advanced technologies, all improved and integrated by human engineering. "The Galactic Council tried to warn you," Chen continued. "They know what happens to species that attack us, but your empire never listens to warnings, does it? You prefer to learn through experience." The admiral realized that his fleet was completely surrounded. What he had thought were scattered patrol boats were actually some of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Each one was armed with weapons that could destroy his dreadnoughts, and powered by technology that made Imperial engineering look primitive. "What do you want?" Vextar asked, his voice hollow. "The same thing we've always wanted," Chen replied. "To be left alone. But since you're here, and since you represent a threat to Earth and its people, we're going to have to deal with that threat." Through his viewports, Vextar could see more human ships decloaking throughout the solar system. Dozens of vessels appeared from nowhere, their stealth systems shutting down to reveal the true size of Earth's defense fleet. Some of the ships were massive, larger even than his own dreadnoughts. Others were sleek and fast, clearly designed for hit-and-run attacks. "How many ships do you have?" he asked. "Enough," Chen answered simply. "Admiral Vextar, I'm going to give you one final choice. You can order your fleet to power down its weapons and submit to escort back to Imperial space. Or you can choose to fight and learn why 17 other fleets never made it home." Vextar looked around his bridge at his terrified crew. For the first time in his long military career, he was facing an enemy that knew more about his own technology than he did. The humans had spent centuries preparing for this moment, learning from every species that had tried to conquer them. The choice before him was simple: surrender or be destroyed. But Admiral Vextar had never surrendered in his life, and his pride would not let him start now, even in the face of impossible odds. Admiral Vextar stood on his bridge, surrounded by the evidence of humanity's technological superiority. Every screen showed human ships that were far more advanced than anything in the Imperial fleet. But 3 centuries of military pride and the weight of 47 conquered worlds would not let him surrender without a fight. "Admiral," Commander Zeklos whispered urgently, "perhaps we should consider their offer of safe passage. The odds are clearly against us." Vextar's purple face hardened with resolve. "I have never retreated from an inferior species, and I will not start now. These humans may have salvaged some advanced technology, but they lack the warrior spirit of the Zephyrian Empire. Prepare all ships for combat." "Sir, are you certain this is wise?" his science officer asked nervously. "They're bluffing," Vextar declared, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "No species can master that much alien technology in just 2 centuries. Their ships may look impressive, but they're probably unstable combinations that will fail under real combat stress." Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system one last time. "Admiral Vextar, my sensors show your ships charging their weapon systems. Is this your final answer?" "Attack formation," Vextar commanded, ignoring Chen's transmission. "All ships target the largest human vessels. Concentrated firepower, maximum intensity. Show these primitives the true power of the Zephyrian Empire." Throughout the Imperial fleet, massive weapons began charging with deadly energy. 12 dreadnought-class battleships turned their guns toward the human ships, their combined firepower capable of reducing a planet to molten rock. The very space around the Imperial vessels began to glow as their shield generators powered up to full strength. "Weapons charged and ready, Admiral," his tactical officer reported. "Fire," Vextar commanded. What happened next would become known in human military history as the 3-Minute War, though most of the fighting was over in the first 60 seconds. 12 Imperial dreadnoughts opened fire simultaneously. Hundreds of energy beams lanced across space toward the human fleet, their combined power enough to crack a moon in half. Plasma missiles streaked through the void, each one carrying enough explosive force to level a city. The attack was so massive that it lit up the entire solar system like a second sun. But the human ships didn't even try to dodge. Instead, they activated defensive systems that shouldn't have existed. Fields of twisted space-time appeared around the human vessels, bending the Imperial energy beams back toward their sources. The plasma missiles simply vanished as they entered zones where the laws of physics had been temporarily rewritten. On the USS Adaptation, Captain Rodriguez watched calmly as the Imperial attack was neutralized. Gravitational redirect fields are working perfectly, his science officer reported. All incoming fire has been deflected. Good, Rodriguez replied. Now let's show them what we learned from the Temporal Syndicate. Some of the smaller human ships activated quantum disruption arrays, technology that had been reverse-engineered from a species that could manipulate time itself. Imperial missiles approaching these ships simply ceased to exist, deleted from reality at the quantum level. Admiral Vextar watched in horror as his massive attack accomplished absolutely nothing. Every beam, every missile, every weapon in his arsenal was either deflected or destroyed before it could reach its target. The human ships sat in space completely undamaged, as if the Imperial fleet had been firing harmless light shows. Impossible, he whispered. Nothing can deflect that much firepower. Actually, Admiral Chen's voice came through his speakers. The Drakmore Collective tried something very similar about 90 years ago. They brought 30 ships and thought brute force would overwhelm our defenses. We learned quite a lot from studying their wreckage. Before Vextar could respond, the human counterattack began. It started with a single shot from the USS Adaptation. One projectile, no larger than a baseball, was fired toward the Dominion's Wrath. To Imperial sensors, it looked like a simple kinetic round, the kind of primitive weapon that couldn't possibly threaten a ship with modern shielding. But as the projectile approached Vextar's flagship, it did something that defied every known law of physics. It passed through the Imperial shields as if they weren't there, phasing through the ship's armor like a ghost, then rematerialized inside the vessel's hull. The projectile didn't explode. Instead, it released a swarm of microscopic machines that began systematically dismantling every weapon system on the ship. Within 30 seconds, the Dominion's Wrath was completely disarmed. Its main guns went silent, its missile launchers shut down, and its defensive turrets stopped moving. "What's happening?" Vexitar shouted at his crew. "Why aren't our weapons responding?" "The weapons systems are being taken apart from the inside," his chief engineer reported in panic. "Something is eating through our control circuits, but it's not damaging life support or navigation. It's like they're performing surgery on our ship." Across the Imperial fleet, the same thing was happening to every vessel. Human ships fired single projectiles that passed through shields and armor to disable weapons without harming the crews inside. It was precise surgical warfare that demonstrated complete mastery of technology the Zephyrians had never seen before. But the humans weren't finished. As the Imperial ships sat helpless and disarmed, the human fleet began demonstrating the full extent of their technological capabilities. Ships that had looked like converted cargo haulers suddenly revealed weapons that could tear holes in space-time itself. Patrol boats that seemed barely spaceworthy opened fire with energy beams that made Imperial plasma cannons look like flashlights. Even the smallest human vessels carried weapons that could have destroyed entire Imperial battle groups. Admiral Vextar watched his fleet being systematically destroyed with surgical precision. The human weapons didn't target life support or crew quarters. They focused on engines, weapons, and communication systems. His mighty dreadnoughts were being reduced to helpless hulks without a single Imperial life being lost. "They're disabling us, not destroying us," Commander Zeklos observed with wonder and terror. "Why?" Vexitar asked. "They could kill us all. Why are they keeping us alive?" The answer came from Admiral Chen. "Because we're not monsters, Admiral. We defend ourselves when attacked, but we don't commit genocide. Your crews will be returned to Imperial space with a message for your Emperor." The USS Adaptation moved closer to the Dominion's Wrath. its massive bulk blocking out the stars. Up close, Vextar could see the true nature of human ship construction. The hull was covered in technologies from dozens of different species, but they weren't just copied. They were improved, integrated, and enhanced beyond their original capabilities. How? Vextar asked weakly. How did you master so many different technologies? Practice, Captain Rodriguez answered from the adaptation. Lots and lots of practice. Every species that tries to conquer us teaches us something new. You'd be amazed how much you can learn when someone is trying to kill you. Within 3 minutes of the battle's start, it was over. 11 of the 12 Imperial dreadnoughts floated dead in space, their crews alive but their ships completely powerless. The 12th ship, commanded by a young officer who had panicked at the first sign of human technology, tried to flee toward the edge of the solar system. It made it exactly 17 kilometers before its hyperdrive mysteriously shut down. Human electronic warfare systems had infiltrated the ship's computers the moment it entered the solar system, and now every Imperial vessel was completely under human control. Well, Admiral Chen said with satisfaction, that went about as expected. Admiral Vextar, you and your crews are now our guests. We'll be happy to discuss the terms of your return to Imperial space, along with some important messages you'll be carrying back to your Emperor. Vexatar slumped in his command chair, staring at the displays that showed his once mighty fleet reduced to helpless scrap. In 3 minutes, the humans had demonstrated technological superiority that surpassed anything in the known galaxy. They had weapons that could rewrite physics, defenses that could stop any attack, and the tactical skill to disable an entire fleet without killing a single enemy. For the first time in his 300-year military career, Admiral Vextar truly understood what it meant to be outclassed by a superior opponent. The humans hadn't just defeated him, they had made his defeat look effortless. The docking bay of the USS Adaptation was unlike anything Admiral Vextar had ever seen. As he was escorted from his shuttle, he found himself walking through corridors lined with technology from across the galaxy. Zephyrian shield generators hummed alongside Korthak plasma conduits. Nexus energy crystals powered systems built with Drakmor engineering principles. It was like touring a museum of galactic civilization, except everything was operational and improved beyond its original design. Admiral Sarah Chen waited for him in the ship's main conference room. She sat at a simple metal table, 2 cups of coffee steaming in front of her. Behind her, large windows showed the disabled Imperial fleet floating helplessly in space, surrounded by human vessels that could have destroyed them all in seconds. Please sit down, Chen said, gesturing to the chair across from her. You look like you could use something to drink. Vexatar remained standing, his purple skin still dark with humiliation and anger. I am a prisoner of war. I demand to be treated according to the Galactic Convention for Admiral, Chen interrupted gently. You're not a prisoner. You're a guest. There's a big difference. My fleet is destroyed. My crew is captive. How am I not a prisoner? Chen gestured toward the windows. Your fleet is disabled, not destroyed. Your crews are being given tours of our facilities and enjoying meals in our dining halls. As for you, you're free to leave whenever you want. We just thought you might like to understand what happened here before you go home. Vexatar finally sat down, though he refused to touch the coffee. What do you want from me? Nothing at all, Chen replied, taking a sip from her cup. We want you to take a message back to your Emperor, and to any other species that might be considering invasion. But first, I think you deserve to understand how humanity became what we are. She activated a holographic display that filled the air between them. Images appeared showing Earth as it had been 3 centuries ago, a single planet with primitive technology, barely capable of reaching its own moon. This is how we started, Chen explained. 1 world, 1 species, completely alone in the galaxy. We thought we were unique, that intelligence was rare in the universe. We spent decades sending radio signals into space, hoping someone would answer. The images changed, showing the arrival of the first alien fleet. The ships were sleek and beautiful. nothing like the massive Imperial dreadnoughts. They approached Earth peacefully, establishing communication and offering trade. The Kellen were our first contact, Chen continued. They were explorers, scientists, peaceful by nature. They taught us about the galaxy, showed us that we weren't alone. For 50 years we learned from them about space travel, energy manipulation, and advanced materials. Vextar watched as the images showed humans and aliens working together, building space stations and exploring the solar system. It looked like an ideal first contact scenario. "What happened to them?" he asked. The holographic display changed, showing a different fleet approaching Earth. These ships were dark and angular, bristling with weapons. Vextar recognized the design. They were from the Nexus Confederation, one of the species his own empire had conquered decades later. The Nexus decided that Earth would make a good colony world, Chen explained. They weren't interested in trade or cooperation. They wanted our resources and our planet. The Kellen tried to defend us, but they weren't a military species. Both civilizations were destroyed in the battle for Earth. The images showed the devastating space battle that had raged around Earth. Kellen science vessels fought desperately against Nexus warships, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. In the end, both fleets were destroyed, leaving only wreckage orbiting the planet. "We were alone again," Chen said quietly. "But now we had the wreckage of two advanced civilizations to study. The Kellen had taught us science and engineering. The Nexus attack taught us that the galaxy was a dangerous place. So we learned everything we could from both of them." Vextar began to understand. "You reverse-engineered their technology." "More than that," Chen replied. "We improved it. Human engineers have a talent for taking existing designs and making them better. We took Kellen energy systems and Nexus weapons, combined them, and created something new." The display showed human ships being built using hybrid technology. They were ugly compared to the elegant alien designs, but they were clearly more advanced than either original design. The Drakmore Collective came next, Chen continued. They brought 30 ships and quantum manipulation technology. We learned about time distortion and probability mechanics from studying their wreckage. Then came the Jean Protectorate with their defensive screens. The Korthak hegemony taught us about plasma manipulation. Every species that tried to conquer us made us stronger. The holographic display showed fleet after fleet arriving at Earth, each one more advanced than the last. And each time the human ships became more sophisticated, incorporating new technologies and new weapons. "You're parasites," Vexitar said with disgust. "You feed off other civilizations." "Are we?" Chen asked calmly. "Or are we students? Every species that came here tried to destroy us. We defended ourselves and learned from our attackers. Is that really so different from what your empire does? Except that you keep the spoils and we use them to defend our freedom?" Vextar had no answer for that. The Zephyrian Empire had built its power by conquering other species and taking their resources. The difference was that humans had faced conquest and survived, growing stronger each time. "The Galactic Council knows about us," Chen continued. "They've known for over a century. That's why they tried to warn your empire away from Earth. They understand what we've become." "And what have you become?" Vextar asked. Admiral Chen stood and walked to the windows, looking out at the disabled Imperial fleet. "We've become the galaxy's immune system, Admiral. Every aggressive species eventually finds its way to Earth drawn by our apparent weakness. And every time, they teach us something new about warfare and technology." She turned back to face him. "Your empire has conquered 47 worlds. But how many of those species had the chance to learn from their attackers? How many had 2 centuries to study every possible form of space combat? You've been fighting wars of conquest. We've been preparing for the ultimate defense." The holographic display changed one final time, showing the current state of human technology. Their ships incorporated designs from dozens of species, all improved and integrated into a unified whole. Their weapons could manipulate space-time, probability, and quantum mechanics. Their defenses could stop any known form of attack. "This is what 17 invasions have taught us," Chen said. "We know every weapon that's ever been used against a planet. We understand every form of shield and armor that's ever been deployed. We've studied every tactical doctrine that's ever been attempted, and we've improved on all of it. Vextar stared at the display, finally understanding the true scope of what humanity had accomplished. They hadn't just survived repeated invasions. They had turned each attack into a learning experience that made them more powerful. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you go home," Chen replied simply. "You and your crews will be given passage back to Imperial space in your own ships, though I'm afraid we'll have to keep the weapon systems disabled. You'll carry a message to your Emperor and to any other species that might be considering invasion." "What message?" Admiral Chen smiled, but it wasn't a cruel expression. It was almost sad. "That Earth is not available for conquest. We've learned too much, become too strong. Any species that attacks us will only make us more powerful. The age of easy conquest is over, at least where humanity is concerned." 3 days later, Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his restored flagship as it limped back toward Imperial space. His weapons were gone, his shields were minimal, but his life support and engines worked perfectly. The humans had even repaired several systems that had been malfunctioning before the battle. His final log entry would become required reading at the Imperial Naval Academy. Any command considering action against the human homeworld should reconsider immediately. This species has turned survival into an art form. They learn from every enemy, adapt to every threat, and improve upon every technology they encounter. The 17 fleets that came before us did not suffer navigational accidents. They became unwilling teachers in humanity's ongoing education and warfare. I strongly recommend that the Empire find other targets for expansion. Trust me on this one. As his crippled fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Vextar took one last look at Earth through his rear sensors. The small blue planet looked so peaceful, so harmless. But now he knew the truth. Humanity had become something unique in the galaxy, a species that grew stronger with every attempt to destroy it. Behind them, the human fleet resumed its patrol of the solar system, waiting patiently for the next teacher to arrive.